There's always a bigger story that the Bible stories are a part of. That's why I harp on this. The bigger story is God's Son stepping away from the comforts of home to come experience extreme discomfort for us. Like Job, Jesus experienced tremendous loss, temporary loss of being immersed in the perfect harmony of the Trinity, temporary loss of the comforts of heaven, temporary loss of the honor and glory of the one and only Son of God. And what did the King of Heaven get? Shame, rebuke, insult, betrayal by those he came to save, suffering, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and death. God spared Job's life. He said, Satan, you can't take his life. But of Jesus, it says he gave up his one and only Son. And for what? For us. For the family he would receive in the end. A people who would choose him and faithfully live for him now and be with him in eternity. So where is God in suffering? He's right there. He's right there. He answered Job from the whirlwind. He heard everything that was spoken in those conversations. So his silence is not absence. He's right there. He's promised to never leave his people, and on top of that, he's everywhere all at once. So there's a purpose for suffering because God allows it. There's a purpose for suffering. Job came out of it saying, before I had heard reports about you, but now my eyes have seen you. There is something in suffering that is experiential that can either pull us and draw us to God or push us away, depending on how we respond. Suffering has this maturing element on our Christian lives. James says this, consider it a great joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you experience various trials, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its full effect, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking nothing. Suffering is not a maybe if you are a Christian. It is a guarantee. And it has a purpose. Paul said in Romans that we're going to experience the glory with Christ, provided we suffer with him now and experience and partake in his sufferings. And in the end, there will be an end, and the blessing will have been not even worth comparing to the loss we experience now, or the suffering and having stood the test. And luckily, we don't have to do this perfect, because Jesus did it perfect. He suffered perfectly. He never questioned God. He in the garden was the closest thing to it. And how did he end his prayer? Man, Lord, if this cup can pass me, or God, Father, if this cup can pass before me, please just let it, if there's any other way, but yet not my will, yours be done. And he drank that cup of extreme suffering. So, because he did that, we can fail. I fail more often than not in my testings. But because of Jesus, his mercies are new every morning. We get to start over every day, but we will suffer. So how does the story of Job fit into the big story of the Bible, the meta-narrative? Think about it. It's almost a miniature story of the gospel. It's almost a miniature Bible. The Bible starts with God dwelling in a garden with a man and a woman who lack trust in God. Adam and Eve lacked trust in God. They didn't trust him enough to take him at his word about that tree, did they? No. Satan comes and he does his work. The Bible ends with God dwelling with a number of people too large to count who know and trust God completely. And Satan is done away with. into the fire. Job's story begins with a Job who's religious but doesn't quite know God. Satan comes and he does his work. Job's story ends with a Job who truly knows God and worships God. Satan's work always just goes to serve God's greater purpose. This is the gospel. This is the gospel. When we suffer, we experience it, and it's not until we realize Jesus is all we got that we realize Jesus is enough for all we would ever need. Where is God in suffering? He's right there. He was right there. And he's right with us in our suffering now.